And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the show. Well, we're going to highlight the Hartford stage today, and I have the pleasure of having Melia Bensussen, the artistic director, as my guest today. And Melia, thank you so much for being here today. It's such a pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, what I had mentioned to you briefly before we started taping is I like to introduce the guest to the viewers so that they understand your background. So why don't you take some time and tell us about yourself?
Well, honored to do so. And I came to this community in the summer of 2019 when I became artistic director of Hartford Stage, an extraordinary theater, now celebrating our 60th anniversary season. I am a theater director by craft. I'd say my training has been less academic and more experiential. Theater is a very old-fashioned field in this way. I really learned by doing and by apprenticing, if you will. I had the great privilege to assist terrific directors when I was coming up. I started out in New York after college, and I worked for Joe Papp in the Public Theater. I was a literary person, a dramaturg, happy to say more about what that is, and started directing off Broadway, and kind of worked my way up in this field to this extraordinary position. This is really a dream job for me. I've directed classics and new plays all across the country, and it's just a tremendous honor to be here in Hartford.
Well, that's so wonderful to hear. You know, the first thing when I have somebody that is in the arts is to ask, did you ever think when you were young that you would be a performer? What about acting?
Oh, and I'm guessing the answer is not dissimilar to the one I'm about to give you. I absolutely wanted to be an actor. And when I was coming up, I'm of a certain age, I didn't know any women theater directors. So I actually had this whole fantasy that I was going to be a movie star, and then because I was famous, they'd let me direct. So it was a very, indirect way of getting here, but that had been my original plan as like a 10-year-old, say.
Did you know as you were going through that process of letting the acting simmer or transition or let go that you would become a director? How did that come about?
Oh, it's such a great question. So I have a really clear, what's the road to Damascus moment, right? So I'm a sophomore in college, and I love being in rehearsal rooms. I just love the process of making a play. It is still, I have to say, one of the things I love most, is to be in a rehearsal room with other theater makers. And so I wasn't being cast as much as I wanted to be as a sophomore in college, so I proposed a play to the student theater. And I intentionally picked out a two-hander, right, which is to say just two actors in the play, because I thought, well, I don't know if I can handle more than two people at this point. And I was accepted. And when I started rehearsals for that play, I really had a eureka moment of, this is extraordinary. I wonder how I get to keep doing this. And I, in college, then split my time between acting and directing. And at the end of my undergraduate career, I applied for grad school in acting, still not really being clear on what how one created a path as a director. And it was once I got into grad school as an actor, and I looked at the model schedule, I thought, no, I like being on the other side of the table too much. And so I really made the decision then my senior year in college, which let us say was a bit of time ago.
Did you know at that time when you made the change that theater was going to be your path? Did you ever think about film or television or video?
Never did. I'm I really love this art form, just with a pure passion. And at different times in my career, I've had offers to shadow or guest or, learn more about TV or video production. And I've always managed to find a reason not to do it and to just stay an acolyte, if you will, to this craft. There is nothing to me like live performance. There is nothing like the energy that exchanges between a cast and an audience. There is nothing like it in my experience. And also the ability to spend so much time caring deeply and working closely with other people to make something without technology interfering, right? There's no filter. It's us, the theater makers, and you, the audience, and we're sharing air, we're breathing together in a space. I just don't know anything like that.
Now, you were mentioning New York. What was it like working there?
I loved it. I spent, let me think. I mean, I guess on and off, right? I've always had New York as a sort of central place work-wise. But living there, it was a great place to get started as a young theater director, right? There were so many interesting artists to watch and learn from, so many opportunities to assist, observe, and also as a young director, and I still, as I've taught directing over the years, have said to young directors, the best thing you can do is work with people who are better than you, who are smarter, more talented, who know more. And in my 20s in particular, I just had extraordinary opportunities to work with gifted designers and actors who've taught me so much.
You're mentioning teaching. When did that happen?
So I have two children in their 20s, and when I was pregnant with my first child, out of the blue, I was offered a teaching job at SMU in Dallas. And a good friend and a mentor, a theater director named Mary Robinson, said to me, the first year of a baby's life, it really doesn't matter where you live. And, you want as much flexibility in your schedule as you can have. And at that point, I was directing all over the country, traveling a lot. And so I thought, how perfect. I'll do this for 1 year for my child's first year, since I really hadn't figured out how I was going to have a baby and a career at that point. It was just a huge leap of faith. And I fell in love with teaching in the same way that I'd once fallen in love with directing. So while freelancing at various theaters and working all over the place, I taught at SMU and then worked at Emerson College, which was the position I had before coming to Hartford. I was a professor in the Performing Arts Department at Emerson College in Boston and was then department chair for 11 years of that program. So I credit it greatly with my own learning and growth.
For the individual that is listening to us today, we like to give a lot of advice as to how to get started. If somebody would like to follow your path of performance and into directing, what would your thoughts be? Is it education? Is it networking? Is it auditioning? What's the process of getting started?
All of those are valid ways, and no two paths are identical. So it's really playing to your own strengths. The one thing that I really recommend is find your people. Make plays with your people, wherever you are. There are people around you who want to do what you're doing. And there is no better way to grow in this craft than to do it. So if that's in a school setting, because that's where you have more resources, or there's a neighborhood playhouse or a community theater near you. The other thing you must do at all times is read plays. Read all kinds of plays and open your mind up to all the different genres and styles that playwriting can thrive in, so that you have tools and resources when you go about directing.
Now, you're mentioning you were at Emerson as a professor and then went over, I believe, to Hartford Stage. What was the process there? What happened?
You mean of how I ended up at Hartford, how I got the job?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So I had been working at so many different theaters, and this field is really one, as in so many fields, is one about human connection and relationships, collaborations. So I had collaborated with artists all over the country. And so somebody gave my name to the search firm, right? Theaters of the size of Hartford Stage, will quite typically hire a search firm for their executive placements. And so someone gave my name to that search firm and the process began. I will say my first professional job was at Hartford Stage. I was an assistant director in 1986 to Emily Mann on a production of A Doll's House at Hartford Stage, where Mark Lamos played Dr. Ronk. A great performance, I have to say. And so when Hartford Stage came up as an option, I just got very, very excited at the possibility. So very grateful to that theater and to that board and to the search firm that, brought us all together.
Why don't we take a moment and talk about Hartford Stage? Tell us about it. How many seats does it have? You're saying it's been around for decades now. What's it all about?
Yeah. So Hartford Stage was one of the first regional theaters in this extraordinary movement of regional theaters, which is to say theaters outside of New York performing world-class work with nationally respected artists, right? When Hartford Stage was formed in 1963, the options for professional theater viewing tended to be either tours that came through, like what you currently see at the Bushnell, or going to New York. And then the leaders of the regional theater movement, of whom Jacques Cartier, who started Hartford Stage, was one, felt that our communities should have great theaters in their midst. And so that was the creation of Hartford Stage. We are, the building we are in now is not where the theater started, but it's a state-of-the-art theater. We're a thrust configuration, and that means the actors are right near you, right? Most Broadway theaters are what we call a proscenium house, and it means you're seeing the play, in through a picture frame almost, right? And a thrust theater means the actors are right beside you. 3/4 of the stage are surrounded by audience. We see 486 people for each performance. We do 6 productions a year. Each production runs about, give or take 4 weeks. And we do a mix of new plays, classics, and for the last 20-some years, with the exception of the pandemic, we've produced A Christmas Carol for the community as well.
Now, as artistic director, what are your responsibilities?
So my responsibilities are basically everything you see on our stage. I have selected in, of course, communication with my great staff, but it's really the artistic director's job is to program the theater. So the selection of the titles, the hiring of the directors, overseeing the actors and design as well. So this is all done with a great team of people, but that is the artistic director's portfolio, if you will, is to do all the artistic programming for an institution.
Okay, let's take a moment and take a break. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Better Business Bureau has received thousands of complaints related to travel insurance. Many don't realize that it doesn't typically cover the cancellation of a trip out of fear of traveling or concerning travel advisories unless you purchase a policy that includes cancel for any reason coverage. And even then, certain things are listed as exclusions. So you must read the fine print. Before purchasing travel insurance, consider that travel insurance is intended to help with unexpected events, not things like forecasted hurricanes. Once an event is a known event, meaning it's been forecasted or anticipated, it may not be considered a covered reason for cancellation if a traveler books a trip after that date. Before purchasing a policy or trying to file a claim, read the specifics on what the policy does and doesn't cover. You can find more travel tips at bbb.org/travel.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host, and again, I hope that you're enjoying the show. Melia, why don't we talk about the website? I don't want to forget that, hartfordstage.org. What will the viewer find if they visit it?
Oh, you'll find such good stuff. I mean, there's the listing of the plays we're doing, so you can purchase tickets or read about the play before you purchase tickets to decide. There you'll see photos of the actors, conversations with all the artists connected with our productions. We have what we call Seen and Heard, and that's spelled seen as in SCENE and Heard. And there are sort of behind the scenes conversations with actors and guest directors, sometimes designers about the plays, and just, really a lot of information on our history and our productions, closed caption performances, and so forth. So I really invite you all to join us there.
And one of the things we want to talk about, which was mentioned by a colleague of ours, is that you're the director of the current production of All My Sons. Why don't we talk about that? Tell us about it.
Yes, I would love to. This is Arthur Miller's breakthrough success of a play. It premiered in 1947, and it's really one of Arthur Miller's greatest plays. So we tend to know more about The Crucible and Death of a Salesman, but All My Sons is, I think, his best play. And we have a cast that includes four-time Oscar nominee Marsha Mason in one of the leading roles, and TV and film actor Michael Gaston playing opposite Marsha. The play is an emotional powerhouse. It is a roller coaster of 2 hours of extraordinary acting and really just extraordinary writing. The strength of Miller's moral conviction, his sense for the theatrical, his sense for the dramatic, is really in evidence here, and it's a great night at the theater. I hope you will all come. It runs until May 5th, and there's also a lot of dramaturgical information on our website. History of the play, bios of the actors, glossary of terms for audience members who might not be familiar with Don Amici or with the fact that President Truman once was a haberdasher. Little details like that you can find on our webpage. But the play is a tour de force for these two actors, Marsha Mason and Michael Gaston. So incredibly worth seeing.
Speaking of May, reminds me of the calendar. What's your calendar look like for 2024? What are the next plays coming up?
Oh, thank you. Well, we've announced next season, so that's the 24-25 season. Yeah, and we're opening with a version of Jekyll and Hyde, nice, scary, suspenseful, psychological thriller, which will open the fall season. And then we followed that with A Christmas Carol, which is a perennial holiday favorite. And this last year, when we returned to A Christmas Carol, there was not a single seat left to purchase, including standing room. So if you're interested in Christmas Carol, buy your tickets now, even though what, it's still April, right? But, never too early. And then we're doing a great American playwright, August Wilson. His play, Two Trains Running, followed by a new comedy called Laughs in Spanish, which is a comedy in English, about an art heist in Art Basel in Miami, with a Cuban flair. Very funny mother-daughter story and art heist all wrapped into one. I am then directing Romeo and Juliet, so Shakespeare's extraordinary love story. I think we need, it's ironic to say that it's an optimistic tale because it is a tragedy, but the purity of the love and the passion of those two lovers, not to mention the great sword fighting and music that this production will entail, will be a lift, I think, for our audiences. And the truth is, a great tragedy is also a freeing emotional experience, right? And then we end the season with a new comedy called Hurricane Diane, which is a bit of a cross between, Real Housewives franchise and a global warming Greek comedy. So a really interesting play. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's meant to be a joyous season, filled with great theatrical adventures, things that you can only experience in a theater, that you won't get. As much as I love film and all the various extraordinary content available on our computers and TV screens, there's nothing like live theater. And All My Sons and next season really deliver a lot of emotional satisfaction for
What
your
is the
attendance.
process that you go through to choose the plays that will be performed there? You're responsible for that, is that correct?
Right. Yes, I read a lot of plays. I talk to a lot of people. I get advice from other directors. I talk to people on my staff, right, at Hartford Stage. And we think a lot about what we think our audience will appreciate at any given time, right? What are plays that speak to this moment? So there's a lot of thinking that goes into it. And you're also looking to create what will, like a chocolate sampler, right? You want enough variety in a season. And the best way to experience that is to subscribe, right? It's really affordable if you do a subscription. And then you get to see, each one of these plays and how they relate to each other and to our contemporary life.
Why don't we take a moment and talk about the O'Neill? Tell us what is happening with that.
Well, so again, a great honor. I am the artistic director of the National Playwrights Conference at the O'Neill Theater Center. Now, this is a summer theater laboratory where over a 4-week period, 8 brand new plays that have never been produced will be workshopped by world-class directors and actors, and the playwrights will get to rewrite the play. Every week there are 2 new plays, and audiences get 2 public performances in which they can view the brand new work. Those of you who are adventurous and really interested in new work, you come see it twice, because in the 2 days between the performances, major things are rewritten. It's really the premier new playwrights laboratory in this country. The mission is to serve these playwrights and to help further the art form of playwriting. Playwriting is not like writing a novel or writing a poem or a short story. You need other voices to complete it. And so the National Playwrights Conference is all about giving a playwright actors, a director, and an audience so they can grow their play. August Wilson's first works came out of the O'Neill workshop, and so many Tony Award winning plays have come through the O'Neill that I would use up the rest of the day just listing them off. So I would invite people to come there. The conference is June 17th to July 14th, and every week there's 2 new plays.
Now, does a playwright submit their work to you, or do they do it directly to the O'Neill?
There's a website for the National Playwrights Conference. Submissions are closed for this summer. We're in the final interviews now. But stay tuned. If you keep going, if you refresh that website in September, there'll be information on next year's selection. It's a completely open submission process. All plays are read, and it just goes through that portal. It doesn't go directly to me.
Now, you and I were mentioning before we started the program that you've got 2 different seasons. So you're at Hartford Stage, and then you'll complete Hartford Stage and then go off to the O'Neill. What's your schedule like?
It's a little crazy. I like to work. So, yeah, basically we close for the season in mid-June, and then I go straight to the O'Neill for 4 weeks. But it's the seasons are when we're in performance. The work for both institutions is less calendar bound than that, because it's talking to theater makers, reading plays, thinking forward for next season for Hartford Stage, right? So we've just announced 24-25, but we're already starting to work on what plays we want to see on our stage in 2026. So it's all ongoing.
What about the individual that has a play that would like to present themselves to Hartford Stage? How do you deal with new works?
Well, that's a great question. So we are still a smaller staff than we were pre-pandemic. As you know, as I'm sure our audience knows, the pandemic really cost performing arts institutions, all arts institutions, a great deal. So our staff is still limited. We don't have a literary person working for us right now. I try to read everything that comes my way. So if you've written a play, do submit it to us. It's just, I would say, it takes me a while to respond these days. but we do at least one new play, if not two a year. But we tend to do those with writers that already have quite a few productions or experience under their belt, right? So my advice to playwrights who are learning the craft still or are early in their career, whatever your age, if you're early in your career as a playwright, find production possibilities near you. Find actors who you trust, who you know, who are friends. Find the theater near you where you can hear the play out loud, because you never know if a play works or how it works or where it works until you've heard it out loud. And you don't need professional actors to do that. Even just a gathering of friends around a dinner table can be an incredible learning experience for a playwright.
Well, we are starting to run out of time slowly. What does the future, if that can be possible, right?
I love the way you said that.
We're slowly getting there. What's the future look like for Hartford Stage? Are you pleased where it's at right now?
You know, we always want more people in our theater. So if you have not been to Hartford Stage this season or this year or in the last 5 years, come back. If you've never been to Hartford Stage, then you must come. It's really a jewel in this region, and it's only here thanks to the support of this community. So I think, you know, we are a strong institution. We have a terrific board, a terrific subscriber base and donor base. But in these times, you know, theater is a challenge still. The economics of theater have never really worked. It requires corporate or foundation support, or, as happens in most European capitals, government funding. So we need you, whoever you are watching this. Come visit us at Hartford Stage. You need us and we need you, and it's a really crucial relationship for us to maintain, to continue, and to grow.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end the show. I want to thank you so much for being here today. It's been a great program.
Oh, thank you. Great questions. It's really an honor to be here. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you need to reach me, I'm at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.